you and I single out Jake because he wrote the book, but what we're saying about him is true of thousands of people, literally, that you and I know in newsrooms across the country. Senator Cotton's going to be here later. He put out a video in 2020 showing Joe Biden's loss of mental capacity and saying this is a real danger to the country. And I just think they can't answer the question, how can you say you didn't see it? Not were you in private meetings or off camera and during an interview, but just watching the public performance of Joe Biden in the 2020 campaign. I just don't see how they can say they missed it or they didn't see it or they didn't have the sources. It was right there.
Well, this is one of the things I like about you, Mark, is you are able to report on both sides objectively, no matter what your personal preference is. And I feel like I can do that too. Obviously, I'm a Trump supporter. I endorsed the man and spoke at his rally, but I can still hit him. I can see when he does things that are controversial. He didn't speak to me for 8 months in 2023 because I did raise some comments about Trump. He kept calling Biden Obama and was making references to World War III. And I pointed out he didn't like that. That's, if you're doing your job right, they are going to dislike you, these politicians, even if you happen to support them politically. But more reporters need to be able to separate their personal preferences from their reporting responsibility.
Yep. All right. This next topic could take 2 hours, but we don't have it. So I'll ask it briefly and you can, weigh in a little bit. But I know you have I'm pretty sure you have a lot of thoughts on this. You mentioned before authenticity and how we look at our friends who are not unshackled as we are. They're not in independent media and they're not their authentic selves on camera or in their writing. Why not? Why can't they be unshackled on cable news or on broadcast television news? What is it that keeps them from doing what you and I are able to do now so freely?
Well, I think there's many answers to that. One is most of these people are Ivy League, elite institution educated folks who they've had a lifetime of good approval and coloring within the lines and making it in the proper spaces. And so that cultivates a certain, unwillingness to show vulnerability. They're only used to getting perfect A's and patted on the head.
Playing by the rules.
Yeah, it takes a fair amount of courage, frankly, to get rid of that veneer. Many did not come up under somebody like Ailes, who saw that in me, even though I'm not an elite institution person, early on, but I was trying to be a perfectionist, saying that doesn't work on television and the audience can smell a phony from a mile away. And so I was given permission by my boss to let my guard down. And I did. But even then, I think people would say that you could see a big difference between me today and me while I was on Fox. There's some constraints in the cable news universe on just how much of yourself you can and should show. The whole system's set up to be supportive of the platform, not exactly the anchor. And the discussions are so clipped and surface level in cable. You don't have 2 hours to sit there and just meander and think aloud and have a funny moment and drop a swear if it's authentic to you. It's like the whole system's set up to keep you in a box.
Yep. And so many of them, and you see this everywhere, they're just reading the prompter and they're waiting for the break and then they're waiting for the next break and then they're waiting for the show to end so they can leave. There's no sense of, I'm so excited to be here with my audience. I'm so excited to talk to you. And that's true of younger anchors and reporters, but it's true of some of the very experienced people. They don't seem to be actually in the moment enjoying what they're doing. And so it seems inauthentic.
It's true. And not just that, but Brit Hume used to say to me, there are a lot of news actresses in this business. You're not one of them.
Right.
But it's true for men too. They're news actors too. These are people who are failed Hollywood wannabes who settled for TV so they could see their mugs on television and feel important. And they're not excited to be there. They just want to be a star. So for them, it's about a performance as opposed to, oh my gosh, I'm excited about the news. I can't wait to talk to you about the news, which I think is closer to how you feel about it. And me too. Either I'm excited about it or I need the show as my therapy. It's a catharsis to set the record straight on what's out there.
Right. So you mentioned Brit. I had the honor of sitting next to Brit in the ABC News White House booth for the first year or so of the Clinton administration. And Brit is one of I'd say the top 5 people I learned from about broadcast television, how to be a broadcaster, but also how to navigate the complexities of working with 200 people to get a story on the air. I'll tell you my favorite Brit story. Brit used to work for the investigative columnist Jack Anderson. And he said Jack Anderson told him that when you called someone's phone, called someone on the phone to try to get an interview with them, and back then you had to call someone's landline, and an assistant would answer, and the assistant would say, "May I tell Mr. So-and-so what it's in reference to?" Britt said Jack Anderson told him to say malfeasance, and he said they always called back. I learned a lot from Britt, including humor, and that's what I want to ask you about next, because I study successful broadcasters, and I think about what are the elements of their brand. What is it that people find appealing? And I listen to what people say they find appealing about you. You're interesting, you're honest, you're authentic. You have a great nose for news. You know where the interesting stuff is. But you're hilarious. Okay, your show is so funny. You are so funny. And so first, I'm wondering what your comedy inspirations are. Either people in news or they're comedians you like whose style you maybe emulate or think about and animate you.
Um, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you. I would say no. I mean, I love comedy and I love comedians, but there's nobody I style myself after. I would just say I come from a long line of funny people. They come by it naturally, and maybe some small percentage of that has rubbed off on me. My Nana was hilarious. My mom is very funny. My brother's hysterical. And it was just, it's like one of those Irish Catholic things where you sit around the kitchen table and you just mock each other mercilessly for your whole lives. So it comes naturally. And the news is just so ripe for humor.
Yeah.
If you can keep that arm's distance between yourself and it, then it's one of those many days laugh or cry things. But I don't think I would enjoy the news anywhere as much as I do if I couldn't laugh at the absurdity of it. And I think that's one of the things that's helped me over the years. I remember one time the New York Times was doing a profile on my show when I was at Fox in primetime, and I gave her a quote at the end of the show saying something like, "We talked about ISIS and men in cages." I mean, it was the worst of the ISIS times. And we had a lot of laughs. And somehow, we were able to do that in our 42 minutes of content on the air here and there. And now here I try to do the same. You got to keep laughing.